Hi guys, welcome to Yesterday's Coffee, the podcast where we chat about fitness, nutrition, and business all over coffee that may or may not have been brewed yesterday. And today we are chatting about spot reduction.
Yeah.
Specifically belly fat.
Why you can't just lose belly fat?
Why can we not just lose belly fat? Or fat from any specific certain area. Legs, triceps, chest.
It's typically belly fat.
Most people are complaining about belly fat, right?
Yeah.
Because we would all like to see some nice abs.
6-pack.
I get it. I'm with you. However, you can do crunches until you die, and you will not get abs that way.
Well, wait, hold on a second. So, you're trying to tell me that if I want to lose my beer gut and get a 6-pack, that I can't just go to the gym and do some crunches.
Jump on the crunch machine.
Maybe run a mile and just bang out crunches every night, and that's not going to do it?
No. Nope. You can start the day and end the day with crunches, and that will not give you a 6-pack.
Even if I do 1,000 every day?
Even if you do 1,000 every single day, if you have a beer gut, it's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Nope. 100%. There is no way to spot reduce. I hope more people are understanding this concept, but we're here to talk about it a little bit more.
We're going to teach it to you today.
Yeah.
Why that's not the case.
Yes.
So it makes sense. I mean, if you don't really know a whole lot about how the body works and how fat loss works, you might intuitively think that if I start exercising in this area, I'll lose body fat in that area. And I think it makes sense thinking that way because if you look at things from a muscle building standpoint, that's exactly how it works. If I start targeting my biceps because I want bigger arms and I start doing a lot of arm exercises, then those will grow because that's exactly how muscle building works. You've got to stimulate the muscle in that particular spot to have it grow. Now, when we flip the switch into fat loss, it's not quite the same thing. And I think the other thing that I hear all the time that just kind of cracks me up is the people that want to turn their fat into muscle. And yeah, it's
I think that's
totally
not their fault, though.
Different tissues.
I honestly think that that's because you know how information kind of gets so watered down and so.
Well, I'm saying this is nobody's fault, any of this.
Yeah,
but
I mean,
it's
if
just
you
one of
have
those
ever
things.
thought that in your life, it's definitely because someone somewhere along the line probably tried to easily convey some information to you in the wrong way.
And I have actually heard people think that because of the amount of body fat they carry is rather large, that gives them a more advantageous position to build more muscle.
I've never
heard
that.
Heard that
No, your body does not use fat tissue as a material to build muscle. That is not the case.
It's almost like people think of this fat or muscle tissue as just this singular Play-Doh that like changes from one form to the other. Like if I'm not active, then it's body fat, and as soon as I become active, it turns into muscle tissue.
No.
That's not it.
No, but you can go through phases of body recomposition. So why don't you tell them a little bit about that?
Well, sure. So, I mean, body recomposition is literally just losing more body fat and building more muscle.
But it's the exchange. It's not that one is turning into the other. They're two separate metabolic
totally different tissues.
Processes.
So your fat is literally just stored energy. Muscle tissue is a contractile tissue. It's an active tissue that moves your bones.
Yeah.
They're two totally different things. So the way that you go about building them and losing them, totally opposite. And so when we get into the idea of losing body fat, you can't take that same train of thought as to, I want to lose belly fat, so I'm going to start training my abs a ton. The truth is that there is no way to really target that individual area. And where you lose body fat first is genetically determined. And so this is why you'll see a lot of people, this is why you'll see different people that hold fat totally differently. So in the case of somebody that seems to maintain abdominal definition year round, they might be very genetically blessed with where they hold fat. Maybe they hold more of it in their legs or more of it in their back, and their midsection just takes longer to fill in. A lot of people, the midsection is the first place body fat goes. And so
most people, yes.
Yeah, and so that's why you'll see...
Because it's protective. I mean, that's definitely something that is built in to the human body is it's a protective mechanism. So all of your vital organs are in the middle and the center of your body, right?
Yeah.
So your body would obviously like to store more body fat there to protect you better. So it's not that it's a terrible genetic thing to have. It's actually probably why most people are like that, is because we all survived.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's a survival type thing.
Yeah, no, it's a good spot to protect yourself there.
Yeah, definitely. So my question is, you know, because you're talking about genetics and how certain people can have certain shapes. If I'm doing a bunch of crunches, why could I possibly see more definition in my midsection?
So you're still training the muscle underneath.
Yes.
So the way that body composition looks, if you know anything about bodybuilding, it's all about creating an illusion. It's all about making yourself look bigger or look leaner than you are, to present this total package. And so when you build up more muscle tissue, you can actually have a higher percentage of body fat and still look leaner. And that's because the base that's underneath you is so much more built up that the fat is more stretched over that muscle tissue.
It's like the muscle is showing through that fat.
Exactly.
So, which is why, like, you might see some success if you do 1,000 crunches every single day.
Right.
You might start to see a better shape, but you're never going to truly reveal the full potential of your abs until you lose weight overall, like your whole body.
That's with the caveat that you're lean enough for that to make a difference.
Yes.
If you've got a lot of body fat on your stomach especially, it's not going to matter how jacked your abs are underneath. You're not going to see them.
Yes. It definitely depends a lot on your body fat percentage. But even people, I would say, like, again, and this comes down to genetics and how their body stores and holds body fat, but even somebody who could be in, like, the 30% body fat range, I feel like could still see some changes. Not I wouldn't say abs. I don't know. I'm just saying that because I've seen it happen. I've seen things just kind of... That might be a
little high, but I see what you're saying.
Yeah. Like tighten up a little bit, even though I don't really like that phrase, like tightening up, but kind of sort of that happening.
I get where you're going with it.
Yeah. Because again, if you have never trained abs in your whole life, like, you actually don't know what your midsection could look like.
Right. Yeah, and
or you don't train it in the right way, which I would say is most people.
And while we're on the topic, even though this isn't completely related, the idea of, like, building more abs into your six-pack, or, like, when you have a six-pack trying to get an eight-pack, that also isn't a thing.
No.
So the abs that you're born with are born with a specific shape and count. And so what separates those muscles into six-pack, eight-pack, 10-pack is literally just tendon and connective tissue.
So you are born with a shape under there.
You can't grow new abs.
No.
Is what I'm saying.
No.
Yeah.
And no matter how lean you get, you can't reveal them if they're not there.
Right.
So, and that is something too, you know, I feel like people see certain body types and body shapes that they aspire to be like, aspire for, whatever that term would be.
Yeah, aspire.
Towards.
I don't know.
But not realizing that your genetics have a really big impact on that. So, you know, you might never get abs like the person that you really want to have abs like.
Right.
So that's something to keep in mind too, is as you start leaning out, if your shape isn't exactly what you want it to be, understand that it might just be your genetics. Doesn't mean that you can't have great looking abs and get really lean, but understand genetics play a big role.
Yeah. So you can't really change the shape or the layout, or the count, but you can obviously influence the size of them.
Definitely,
so
and you can grow them the size of certain
just like
areas.
any other muscle.
Yeah.
Not to make this a tangent about six-packs and eight-packs, but
yeah, anyway.
it's just something that made me kind of think of that, because that is another thing that comes up, especially when somebody's never been lean the first time and they see all these different, it used to be the magazines, but now it's Instagram.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, man, if I just start doing whatever ab routine they're selling, maybe I'll start looking like that. It's not the case. Well, you're born with what you're born with shape-wise. Certainly you can grow them, but that's about the extent of it.
Well, you also have to realize, too, because I feel like some people still don't get this, photos that you see online, it's a lot of angles, it's a lot of lighting, it's still Photoshop. Like, people still use Photoshop just like they did with magazines.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, it's not all Photoshop.
It's not, but you also have to understand that a lot of the people that you're seeing probably don't walk around 365 days a year looking like the photos
so
that they
that's a
post
good
on
point.
Instagram.
And I think the bigger point then, I mean, sure, there are some people out there that would use Photoshop and be completely ridiculous with it. A lot of these people are fairly genuine. Sure, there's the filters that can make you look better.
Well, I'm just saying, even like posing, like nobody, I feel like normal people don't even understand that, like, people pose in a certain way. They don't walk around, like, their six-pack might not be shredded 100% of the time, but if they flex in a certain way, it's going to look better. Do you know what I mean?
Well, absolutely. That's 100% the case. But even more than that is the fact that these people aren't in that shape year-round.
No.
And what I mean by that is they'll go and do their photo shoot, they'll get 3,000 photos, and they'll post them year-round.
Throughout the year.
But I promise you, being on the other side of that, being in that kind of condition, these people don't hold that level of shreddedness year-round. They might stay in shape year-round, but these perfect pictures that you're seeing are typically from batches. So just something to keep in mind.
Well, it's good to keep in mind because you have to realize that to get super, super shredded abs and keep them, for one, is not super natural and super sustainable. And for the average person who's not doing photo shoots of their abs, like, you might want to rethink what your goals actually are. Not to say you can't have something to aspire to, but...
What, you don't want people getting abs?
No, I think it's great. But I'm just saying, like, I think a lot of people, and probably more women than men, I don't know, have misconceptions and think that, like, these girls walk around looking like this. And, like, you can see these people in person, and a lot of them don't look anything like their photos. And it's not to say that they've never been in shape or that they're not still in shape. It's just, it's a combination of when the photos were taken, how hard they were dieting at the time, what pose they chose, what the lighting was like.
Well, there's that element of peaking, which is part of any physique sport where you're literally trying to dial it in to look your best on one day. Because that's what the competition's all about.
But when you're talking about just losing weight because you want to feel better or more confident about yourself, like, that's not about one day. Like, you're trying to get to a place that's sustainable for yourself long term. So I think that that's something to keep in mind.
Yeah. So reeling this back in off of the six-pack tangent we went on.
Yeah.
So another thing that gets brought up a lot with losing belly fat specifically are the idea of waist trainers.
Ooh, yeah.
And ab belts and all this crazy stuff that you put on. And it's all context dependent. As far as does a waist trainer work as to helping me lose body fat? No, not really. There is one super specific case where it might. So before we get to that, the idea behind a waist trainer is that you get the area warmer. You create more heat there.
Some are meant to just suck you in. Like, some are more corsets.
Well, yeah. So there's the corset thing. That's ridiculous.
That's absurd.
So that's
Please
not
don't
what
do
I'm
it.
talking
It's
about
not
here.
good for your body to squeeze all of your organs.
Squeezing your organs in is not
good.
Not ever something I would ever recommend.
No.
So not talking, disregarding that. The
Kardashian trend.
Yeah. So the belts that you'll see, basically like these, I don't even know, what's the material, like neoprene?
Neoprene. It's
so
something that holds heat really well.
This big thing that you wrap around your midsection, it really heats up the area. And the idea is that if you get more heat into that tissue, you create this environment where that fat can be more easily mobilized and then used as fuel. And I haven't looked into any research that's been done on this.
There was some promising stuff. I thought you did look into it.
Just a little bit. It's been a little while. Things point in the direction that it could be useful and that it could be helpful, with the big caveat being that you have to be really lean for this to matter.
For it to make a difference.
So,
because honestly, it's not going to make a huge difference if you are above, like, what % body fat would we say?
Above 10, maybe?
Above 10. Like, we're talking about super, super, super lean people who are competing in sports or shows.
I wouldn't even think about using a waist trainer like that to be able to impact your results unless you already have a six-pack.
Yeah.
Like, if if you can't see your abs, these things are going to do nothing for you. What this is going to allow you to do is, if you're already super lean and you've got some really stubborn fat like within the crevices of your abs, maybe having a little more motility in that area can help free that up and burn that off. But if you can see like maybe the top 2 abs, there's no point even bothering with it. So yeah, I mean, that's really all there is to it. Keeping that area warmed up does have some benefits to it. But for the majority of people just trying to lose body fat, lose their belly, there's absolutely no benefit to doing that.
Yeah. So don't waste your time and don't waste your money. I mean...
Well, yeah, and then you just get all unnecessarily sweaty and nasty.
Very hot and sweaty. You
creams that they'll put on there and whatever else. It's like
body fat. Well, a lot of those creams that are out there are literally just coconut oil. They might have a little caffeine added. They might have a little of another oil added. But a lot of them are just coconut oil, which actually kind of blocks your pores. I mean, it holds in heat really well. But I would say it's, for one, overpriced coconut oil. And for two, it's probably not even great for you to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's not something to ever worry about. It's not going to help you out.
There's no way to cheat the system. That's honestly what this comes down to, is you cannot cheat. You have to lose body fat by, good diet and exercise. And that weight is going to come off across your whole body, depending kind of sort of on your genetics and where your body is more prone to lose body fat. If you do, this is kind of the last thing I wanted to touch on. If you do potentially have what I guess I'll call problem areas, you do have a good diet, you do have a good training program, but there are maybe some certain areas that seem to hold a larger amount of fat, like kind of like an oddly high amount of fat based on how athletic or how lean you already are. It could potentially be related to certain hormones, because we do know that hormones influence where your body is going to hold on to fat and how it's going to let your body get rid of it or mobilize the fat.
Right.
So a lot of times we'll talk about, cortisol and stress and how that can contribute to holding more in the midsection, how different sex hormones can impact where you hold weight in terms of more in the lower body or the triceps for women with hormone imbalances, or more in the chest for men.
Yeah, so like low testosterone tends to cause men to hold more fat in the chest. And then the high estrogen was more fat in the triceps for women.
And the thighs, which again, most women will be like, yeah, that's where I'm holding my weight. And I would say most women also have a slight hormone imbalance just because of life in general. But if you're kind of to the point where you feel like you're pretty athletic, you feel like you're decently lean, but you still have these like kind of sort of stubborn areas, and you can be honest with yourself that you really are on track with your diet and your
not just
training
binging
program
every weekend.
Yes, and you're not just going crazy,
partying and whatever.
And we're not talking about people who are still very overweight. We're talking about people who kind of are doing all the right things. They're seeing progress, but there's a couple areas that they're having issues with. It could be worth it to look into seeing if your hormones are in order, or working on stress if your stress is really high, something like that. It's
definitely never a bad idea to have the extra data. I certainly wouldn't necessarily go there first.
No, definitely not first. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. If you're at the point where you've been training for a while, you've been eating good for a while, you've made progress, but you kind of get stuck and it's not your training or your nutrition that's the problem, you might be able to look into that.
Yeah, so don't use this as an excuse to say, like,
nope,
I haven't really been trying that hard, but maybe I have a hormone imbalance.
This is not people who are like 50 pounds overweight, 40 pounds overweight. Like, this is
nail
the
nutrition
situation.
And training first, and then if that's really not working, and by really, I mean really, then you can go that route and start looking as to if there are other things maybe going on behind the scenes that are influencing your lack of progress.
Yeah, definitely.
So thank you guys for tuning in this week. If you have any topics you would like us to cover in the future, feel free to reach out to myself at HypertroFit.com, and you can find Alexa at therootedrd.com. And we will see you guys again next week.
We'll see you guys next week.